Grant Houcks here with St. Peter's Fly Shop. We just got done with a week here at Tsimane Lodge, and upon leaving, we had a fabulous, fabulous week. One of the reasons why we had such a great week was our preparation and making sure that we had all the essentials when being down here in the jungle. Visiting Tsimane is a special thing that not many folks get to do, and being so remote, you do need to make sure that you come fully prepared. The lodge is not equipped with all the things that you'll need, so making sure you check your packing list prior to departing is going to be very important. Today, I wanted to run through all the items that we had here to make sure that you guys had a good idea of the things that you may need while here in the jungle. First, I'm going to start with some of the basics. So as you can see, I'm currently wearing a sun hoodie, quick dry pants, and that's going to be your normal gear. We recommend that you bring 3 sets of outfits per week for this operation. They do have a great laundry service of which they can return their laundry within 24 hours from the day that you drop it off. That's really nice so that if you do need to get your laundry cleaned throughout the week, you can have that done. The other item that's going to be important throughout the course of the week when fishing, aside from my clothing, I'm going to move right into it, is going to be a great pair of wading socks. I recommend that you bring at least 2 pairs of wading socks. And what I found through the course of the week, having tall socks instead of short socks is going to be very beneficial. One of the things that you'll hear people talk a lot about while you're down here is your feet getting beat up. And that's because of the sand and constantly being wet. Us coming from Colorado, and many of you may be coming from the States, may not be used to the conditions that they have down here. You will be wet, your feet particularly, for the majority of the day and the time that you're here, except for at night when you dry out. So it's important to keep that in mind. In addition to that, a good pair of wading boots, felt highly recommended, is going to be a good idea. Don't go short on your boots. In addition to your boots, laces, make sure those are good, and you may even want to consider bringing an extra set of laces. Moving from there, one other item that the guides do is sometimes they'll put a standard pair of socks inside of the wet wading socks. Again, sand is one of the largest issues here, and when you look at the people's feet, the guides' feet, you'll notice that they have abrasions on there, and that's from sand getting in the wading socks and actually beginning to rub your skin off. The last item on that, yes, the grande jug of petroleum jelly. Each day prior to starting, they highly recommend that you rub your feet with the petroleum jelly prior to putting on your socks. It does make a difference. Not only does it help for abrasion with sand, but it's also a water barrier. So if you can consider that your feet are going to be wet the whole time and you have a nice lubricated barrier like that, it's going to help along the way. Moving up from your feet, we talked about your pants and your shirt. Another item, and many of our guests even brought to my attention, how important sun gloves are. Sun gloves are not only for the sun, but they're also for the bugs. Being in this environment, bugs are everywhere. If it's not a bullet ant, then it's a biting caterpillar or sand fleas. We really didn't find mosquitoes to be such an issue, but more so the sand fleas. So gloves are going to be essential, and not only bringing 1 pair, but 2 pairs of gloves is going to be a great idea. These get dirty and nasty throughout the week. And not only that, but they stay wet. So having a pair to exchange each day is going to be a very good idea. We had a little look at kind of some of the fishing essentials and your daily essentials as far as your wares go. So one other thing in your daily essential of wear is going to be maybe a pair of rain pants to put in your backpack, as well as a raincoat. One other recommendation that I would have would potentially to be bring a layering piece. We fortunately did not have this situation where we needed to wear a layering piece. The only time that I found that I would have enjoyed it was we went on a long hike one day. When I got back, everything was soaking wet, and then we got in a motorcycle to come back to the lodge, and during that ride, that could be chilly. So having something to keep you warm on that ride and a clean change of clothes may be helpful. Now that we've had a chance to kind of look at all of our wearing gear, I want to have a chance now to kind of take a look at all the essentials for fishing. I'll put a photo up in this post, but I wanted to give you a quick look at kind of what my table looks like so you can have an idea of some of the items that we have out here. We're going to continue down the fishing path. some of the things that I found to be very beneficial during the course of the week was to have a good waterproof fanny pack or chest pack. This is something that you can load daily, reload daily for your little excursions out from the boat. Most days, the boat will follow you or your guides will follow you and they're happy to carry gear, but it's always nice to have a bag to be able to put all the items that you need to in case you do leave the boat. Aside from a fanny pack, a backpack may be a really good idea. And you'll notice that all of the packs that I have are waterproof. Waterproof is 100% essential here. Each day you're riding in some sort of dugout canoe, and those canoes do not fully hold water seals, and there's water in the bottom of the canoe. So from the day you arrive off the airplane to each day of fishing, you'll be in those canoes. And that's why dry waterproof bags are so essential. So again, whether that's a fanny pack or a backpack, and you'll even see that my main bag that I packed in over here is also going to be waterproof. So each day inside of my pack, I want to go through what I put in there, and I'll just kind of put the items in as I go in here. Right here, big first and foremost, this doesn't actually go in my pack. I normally am not much of a stripping basket fan, but I found a stripping basket, and not a basket, but the stripping visor, to be one of the biggest essentials for me on this trip. The reason for this is a couple. One is there are times when the fish come in quick and they're explosive. You don't have time to pull out your line and then make the cast to those fish. So if you're already stacked and ready to go when that instance happens, it's going to give you a big upper hand to being able to get the shot out there quick. The second one that I found to be beneficial is in some of the beats, some of the sections of river that you'll fish, you're actually in fast current. So upon being in fast current, if you're stripping your line in the water before you make your next cast, your line will be dragging in the water. So to have a stripping basket there to be able to put your line in rather than having to cast all the line out will actually save a lot of energy throughout the week. One thing about the stripping basket that I found throughout using it is I never seem to just put it in my front here. And rather than stripping to my stripping basket, which is what I hear a largest complaint is that, well, it affects my strip, I actually would just always strip, look where my line would go, and then I would move my basket down to that location so that my strip was natural and I didn't affect my strip. I found this to be a big key for my weekend success. Moving from there, the next thing I would put in my pack, and one of the things that I would consider to be essential, would be a nice set of pliers. Now recall, your guides will be with you throughout the course of the week. They're happy to help you throughout most any of these processes, releasing fish, changing flies, building leaders, any of those things that you may need to do. But there were times when my guide may have been up with the other person or with, off in the woods or whatever doing, and it'd be nice to have a set of pliers to be able to get you all set up on that front. There are sharp clippers on here too. We are using wire leaders, which I'll go to in just a minute, but that'll also allow you to be able to cut the wire without doling your clippers. Also, larger than your standard forceps, though I do have a pair of standard forceps in here as well. These are gonna help make sure that you can get the flies out. We had an instance where we took a fly out and I watched the Dorado bite down on these things and literally shatter its teeth upon trying to get this out of its mouth. From the forceps, though I did not use my pocket knife this week, having a pocket knife in your bag may not be a bad idea. There, I've got clippers. Clippers are always an essential when going fly fishing. After that, I typically like to bring a pair of scissors with me. These are just fly tying scissors. I may find these useful for cutting leaders and things like that. I also tie a lot of my own flies, or even the commercial flies I buy may be too bulky. So to have a pair of scissors to be able to trim things down or cut things into the right direction might be a nice idea. A hook hone. Most folks don't pack a hook hone. I find a hook hone to be very essential for a couple reasons. These flies, you made an investment into these flies. There's a couple things that can happen to your flies. One is you may cast them out in the river and get hooked on the bottom, and upon doing that, you're gonna pull and potentially dull the hook. The other one, since most people don't look in their back cast, they never see this. In your back cast, you may hit rocks, and upon coming forward, also dull the hook. So that investment that you made in that single fly is now gone. Having a hook hone, you can quickly sharpen a hook and keep that fly in the game. These fish's mouths are extremely strong, so having something that's sharp is going to be essential to making sure you get the hook up. The next item is a nail knot tool. A nail knot tool may come in handy. I actually this week had an instance where we were using 40 pound and 40 pound. I hooked onto a tree across the river and I went to break off my fly. Well, my fly line broke prior to my leader. So I had to tie a nail knot on, create a new nail knot at the end of my line because my loop was gone. I always recommend bringing a nail knot tool. UV knot sense is another item that I've learned over the years to always carry. UV knot sense is simply what it is. You can squirt, it's liquid, you can squirt it onto something, and as soon as it hits, it's gonna turn hard. So if you're finding that your knots aren't holding strength, if some of your flies are coming apart, this is another item that you can use for a quick fix in the field. It could also repair some things, lace clippings, some of that type of stuff, as it's very strong once hardened. Moving from there, those are most of the fishing essentials aside from our flies and leaders. So to go through that a little bit, it's nice we don't have to have, you know, the number of leaders that we may have in the trout world. I found it pretty simple that we had a 30-pound shock and a 40-pound shock. So this is monofilament. And typically you're running anywhere from a 5 to 7 foot piece of this combined on the end with the wire bite. You cannot catch these fish without wire bite. Everything that's in these rivers have teeth and eat each other. So wire bite becomes extremely essential. I've got a 30-pound here for a little clearer water conditions and 40-pound here for maybe slightly more off-color water conditions. Our most common rig was 40 to 40 pound. But if you do need to go lighter, then it's nice to have the 30 to 30 pound setup. That moves through most of my daily fishing essentials that I found that I was using in my pack. There were other items that came in handy on a daily basis. Things to consider: sunscreen, application before you leave, as well as an application during the day. Wet ones. Well, shit happens, and seem to a lot of us. And so having something to be able to clean yourself in the woods is going to be very essential. A few other items I like to carry along are a couple extra plastic bags. Always a good thing to have. Each day, it's important to make sure you have your medications. When you leave the lodge, you will be gone from the lodge for approximately 8 hours. For me, I typically bring some sort of indigestion pill, as well as a few Advil and some dental floss. On top of that, something to help you clog up, Imodium. Put a few of those in your bag for the daily. The next item would be your bug blocker, bug spray. I keep this in a separate bag because if you've ever seen this stuff get on things, it can absolutely eat through it. So putting this in a plastic baggie and then putting it in your bag is a good choice. Moving out of my bag, a few other items that I found that I used daily while I was on the river, and probably one of the most important parts of being down here is hydration. I can't explain to you enough how important hydration is, and nor can you begin to drink enough water down here. The elements are hot, humid, and you work hard. Many of the guests this week said this was some of the hardest work they had, and although there were rewards to that, there is some efforts put in. So what you would find most of our guests doing is carrying a Grail. These are a simple water filter. You can use this every day when you're around the lodge. Also, what we would find people doing is each evening when they would return, they would push 3 or 4 of these worth and fill up a water bladder. You can then put the water bladder either in your backpack or your fanny pack and carry this daily. I would recommend filling it. If you don't want to carry it, you can always leave it either in the boat or the starting location and still have your full Grail. Again, a Grail is an essential item in my opinion when you're down here, as well as a water bladder. On the note of hydration, also having electrolytes is going to be a very important item. I again cannot stress you need to focus on drinking water and electrolytes multiple times throughout the day. Maybe morning, even midday, and as well as in the evening. I brought 2 of these along, 10 in each of these, and I consume the majority of them. One other thing for hydration I got on here is a koozie. This may become handy in the evenings or rides back when having a cerveza. After that, a few other items you may want to look at. Each day I typically packed a snack. I put a granola bar and maybe some beef jerky in my bag. They feed you a great lunch. You can eat whenever you want. There are some snacks, but I always just found it nice again that if I was out wandering around or a little ways from the guide and I felt hungry or everybody else wasn't quite ready to eat yet, I had something to give me energy out there. Another item I always carry in my backpack is a spare pair of sunglasses. Not only maybe a spare, but I recommend a different lens color. So currently I'm wearing copper. You may consider a low light lens. That would be a nice one here. I really didn't find a blue lens, you know, something that would be good for the bright saltwater to be essential at this location, but copper in a low light would be two great items to have as far as sunglasses go. You may want to consider a croaky as well to put on your sunglasses. Working through the items here, I also always have a sunglass cleaner to make sure things are, in case I get smudge on there or sunscreen, then I have a way to clean my sunglasses. Continuing in the fishing realm, one of the most important items is going to be your fly rod and your reel. Throughout the week, I didn't find that having a massive amount of backing was necessarily essential. Most of the fish don't take extremely long runs like you may experience in the saltwater. They're very powerful, very explosive, aerial as well. But typically, most of your fly line may come out, but not always, and a lot of it's done either with stripping or a quick reel back too. Still having a large arbor reel, properly loaded with some backing, and absolutely essential, in my opinion, would be a jungle line. These tapers are built to cast the type of flies that you're trying to cast here. One of the comments that I got and things that I found myself was that, oh, these flies are not what I'm used to casting on a daily basis. They're a challenge. They're big flies. I'll show you a few of those in a minute. But upon that, having a taper that's designed to be able to turn over those type of flies is very important. This is a 9-weight. I found myself using a 9-weight most frequently throughout the week. An 8-weight's a great choice as well. They recommend 8, 9, or 10. The 10 would be if maybe you were having a little more struggle turning over those larger flies, but I felt like a 9 was good for casting as well as for fighting most of the fish. An 8 would be a good choice as well. Again, 9-weight rod. This is a Scott rod, 9-weight, 9 foot. Each day I did carry a spare fly rod with me in my backpack, and that was in case I experienced any casualties. Traveling down here with my fly rods, weight is a consideration, so I actually ended up bringing the Patagonia rod roll instead of one of the Dakota carry-on cases from Fish Pond or an item like that. I was able to pack my rods in here and pack my rods in my bag. You could also bring this in the boat on the daily if you wanted to, throw this in the boat, and that would then protect your rods on a daily basis when you're in the boat fumbling around or trying to get new rods and so forth. That really brings us through most of the fishing items, minus another very important one, and that is flies. With flies, I guess you could say you could never quite have enough, but I would recommend somewhere between the 3 and 5 dozen range. And I know that's a pretty wide spread, but it just kind of depends on what you go through. What I found was that I packed a lot of light color and dark color flies, and dark color flies this week seemed for me to be more better for the fishing, and I went through a lot of my dark color flies. I'm not going to go through too many bugs here. We'll do a separate video about flies so that you guys can get a better idea of what we're doing. But again, one item that I found very important is to have a waterproof fly box. This will keep your flies dry throughout the day, whether you're in the boat, moving around, heavy rains, some of that type of stuff. So each day I was able to resupply a smaller fly box out of my big fly box. I did bring my big fly boxes with me in the boat, and then that way the guides each day could choose what flies they wanted. I ended up bringing a smaller Tupperware. I would actually recommend the medium waterproof Umpqua box. They make those as well. I didn't grab one of those, but I do have another waterproof Tupperware that each day I would refill with the essentials that I wanted. Anything from pacu balls, to dry flies, to streamers, to poppers. And then I felt like I had a nice essential set of bugs to work out of while I was out fishing. We're working through the list here pretty solid. A couple of other items that are still on the table, although I do feel like we're going to move away from the fishing realm as we've gone through most of that, that I did find critical to have, or at least nice to have, is a headlamp. You may find you need this at the end of the day while fishing or around the lodge. I don't consider it essential, but it's a nice item to have. I also brought an extra power pack. This became important. The flights down here and back are very long, so having a good power pack to be able to charge your stuff is nice, as well as if you needed to bring it on the river for a daily to charge something up if you were using your phone a lot. To plug in your power pack, you will need a converter. So this guy will plug into the wall. It's a really nice one. It's got multiple locations to be able to plug in USB outlets, as well as you can also plug in your standard plug-in if you need to. I did bring a couple of lighters for those who may like smoky treats. Not a bad idea. Bring an extra. A few other items. I've got a garbage bag here. This is to put over my head as the week goes along if I'm not casting well. No, just kidding. This garbage bag is actually for my wet boots on the last day. So we are here on our last day. I let my boots dry out overnight, but you can still see they're very wet. I'll put my boots in the garbage bag upon returning home. The lodge does have some garbage bags, but I always recommend bringing your own garbage bag, whether it's a trip here or a trip to the saltwater. I've run through the majority of the items. The last thing I have here is just my bathroom kit, and I'm not gonna run through that extensively. You know, making sure you have good chapstick's important, some lotion is important, and all the essential drugs that you're gonna need throughout the course of the week for your personal self is very important. Anti-diarrheal this is real, is a very important item to make sure you have in your bag as well. Visit your doctor. They can get you set up with some of that, as well as some additional medications in case you get travel diarrhea. When you're down here, when an instance like that takes place, it takes a lot out of your body. And so it's important to make sure that you have the right drugs to put yourself in the right direction to be able to complete the rest of your week while down here in the jungle. One of the things that one of the clients recommended to me that wasn't specifically clear was that the lodge does provide shampoo and soaps. So don't waste your time with extra weight in your bathroom kit, but just your main essentials that you'll need when you're down here. That pretty much wraps up the gear list for today. As we've gone through everything, had a wonderful week here at Tsimane Lodge. And again, preparation for coming down here is everything. If you have the right gear, the right items, you're assured your week is going to be a larger success. Do recall though, if you forget things, there are some items down here, as well as the other guests and guides will do their best to supplement the things that you need. But when coming down here to the jungle, make sure you come prepared.